Have you ever thought about how much energy it takes for someone to explain something to you? How recently was mental illness recognized as something Social Security supports? When was the first time you were sexualized? Hello. Time has been melting together. I can't believe it's the end of April already. I have an exciting interview to share with you today, as well as some more exciting news. Today we're chatting with Liz Booman. Liz is a social worker and owner of Steadfast Vintage. We get into the benefits of social work, as well as some of the frustrating places where the system could use some more support. We also talk about some fun things, like Liz's love for vintage wares, and share some stories about our adventures in fashion as kiddos. If you want to check out Liz's online shop, her Instagram handle is @steadfast.vintage. Also, Liz mentions Disability Advocacy Day as a way to get involved in supporting those with disabilities. While this year's day has already passed in February, a great way to stay informed is by liking The ARC, ARC, Minnesota on Facebook. The ARC Minnesota promotes and protects the human rights of people with intellectual and developmental disabilities and actively supports their full inclusion and participation in the community through their lifetimes. As for the other piece of exciting news, the ultimate goal of this podcast has always been to create change through a community. I've been experimenting with ways to make this a bit more radical over the past year and a half, but hadn't been able to come with something that felt just right. For some reason, I was always caught up on feeling like I needed more resources before I could take that step forward. But with everything going on in the world right now, I've really been in awe of how we've all stepped up to take care of each other in the ways that we're able. It's also reminded me that every single dollar counts. With all that being said, I've decided to take on a new structure. As some of you already know, you can listen to this podcast for free through most of your favorite streaming services. You can also opt in to support through a monthly donation over at patreon.com/listentogirls for as little as $1 a month. Starting with this episode, every cent over our $20 operating costs will go towards a new cause every month. To kick it off, May will be dedicated to the ARC Minnesota. Thanks again for listening, and if you have any suggestions on guests or causes to support, throw me an email at listentogirls@gmail.com or join in on the conversation over at patreon.com/listentogirls. Let's go. How's it going, Liz?
It's good. It's good. How are you?
Very good.
Good.
Thanks for being here.
I love being here.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah.
So we're talking to Elizabeth Booman today.
Yep. That's me. That's sometimes Liz. Some people call me that.
All right. So Liz is a social worker.
Yep.
Liz is a vintage apparel dealer.
Yep.
Very good. She's actually wearing a trench coat right now filled with various vintage apparel.
Come at me.
I met Liz. I don't think I really met you until that bachelorette
The bachelorette party.
Yeah. Quite.
Farm Aid.
Yeah.
Farm
Totally.
Aid. Rainy day.
Farm Aid.
2019.
Okay, great. Yeah, my mind is in the trash can right now. I couldn't remember when that was.
That was an experience for sure.
That was an experience.
Yeah.
That was just specifically being at Farm Aid and being in the rain all day. It was like the worst and best day ever.
Right. Yeah. There's like some communal understanding that we all share in despair.
Seriously.
It brought us closer, I think.
Yeah, I think I accessed a new like type of meditation where I just like left my
Acceptance.
body,
Yeah.
listened to Bonnie Raitt, and like
Oh, Bonnie Raitt was dope.
Dope.
She was so sick. Yeah.
yes,
I did not know. I mean, I knew, but I didn't
yes,
know.
yes,
I didn't
yes.
know.
And just like just like kind of oozed badassery
Yeah.
and like sauntered around the stage.
Yeah. Yeah.
And was also like amidst a bit of a boy club. And like
Definitely.
was just like, damn,
Killing it.
you're a rock star. So we love Bonnie Raitt.
We do.
Can we talk about social work a little bit?
Yeah, let's do it.
I want to find more out. Well, okay, let's back up.
Okay.
Where are you from?
I am born and raised in Minneapolis. I grew up in Northeast Minneapolis.
Sweet.
And I went to elementary school at Sheridan Global Arts and Communication School, which is still there.
Wow.
It's right by the 331 Club.
Okay.
Fond memories. Playing, Foursquare and so I'm from here. I'm from Minneapolis.
Sweet. And you stuck around the whole time? Did you move around at all?
Yeah, I lived in France for like a brief stint.
Awesome.
I was dating a Frenchman and took
Very
advantage.
nice.
Flew overseas and lived there. You can do like 3 months there and 3 months back. So I did
Okay.
that twice.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Do you have family in France too? Or
No.
was it, okay.
I wish. Yeah.
Just a boyfriend.
Yeah, just a boyfriend.
Can I dig a little deeper about
Dig,
the French
dig.
boyfriend?
Sure.
How did that come about?
Oh, we went to Hamlin, which is where I went to university
okay.
together.
Tight.
Yeah. The first time I kissed him, he literally ran away.
Yes. What?
He just stood up and ran away, and then the next time he said, I didn't know what it all meant. And I was like, well, I just kissed you. I thought you were cute, so I gave you a smooch, but
Whoa.
it
So
was
was it
too intense.
was it like an unprompted smooch, or was it like a,
yeah, it was like a walk. I walked him home. I walked him to his dorm, and then smooched him goodnight, and he ran away. Yeah.
I feel like that's my response for most things, so that actually pleases me a lot.
Yeah.
Okay, so ran away from the smooch,
He ran away.
and then the next time you saw each other,
And then we ended up dating for 2 years.
amazing, sweet.
Yeah.
And then you went off to France.
And then after I graduated, I moved to France.
Sweet.
To be with him, to live with him, and we did a lot of traveling. That was really nice.
That's awesome.
Picked up my French.
Sweet.
And and then the breakup was pretty bad.
Oh.
I broke up with him on Facebook Messenger.
You just got up and ran away. Essentially.
I returned the favor. I ran away from him. Yeah, I had a plane ticket to go back.
Oh shit.
I had a long-term visa to start working there, and I didn't go. Yeah.
So you were in France and you broke up with him, or you?
No,
were...
I was here.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's kind of.
I knew I couldn't break up with him if I went there. It would have been, I wouldn't have had the willpower. I think he would have been able to convince me out of it, and I just
Totally.
made that choice. But
Why
yeah.
did you realize that you had to break up?
I wasn't in love with him,
Totally.
and I was in love with the idea of something else.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew it for a long time, but I was constantly trying to talk myself out of it. And I also had met Tim at the time.
Okay.
To be honest.
Hey, Tim. What's up, Timmy?
Was my current partner. Yeah. We met at a record store. So
oh my God.
I wanted to make sure it wasn't about that, because this is like a life decision,
Yeah.
one road or another. But it did probably have, persuasion.
Totally. Yeah. So what were you just like feeling out France? Were you working while you were there?
No, I
Just
wasn't.
traveling?
I
Okay.
was traveling, but
That's
this
awesome.
time when I was going to go back, I could have worked, and I was going to take
Totally.
a class. And actually, I do some parts that I regret is I was going to take a class, learning French and I had some dreams of going to work there for anthropology. That's what I studied in university.
Totally.
So I was, some form of a dream that I had at some point was to move to France and work in museums and speak French and have little French babies.
Very cute.
That's not going to happen now. Well, not right
Well,
now.
yeah,
No, probably
Maybe
not.
you could have French speaking babies.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah.
Sweet. So how did you decide to major in anthropology?
I took a class in high school that I really liked.
Okay.
And it just like clicked something in me, and I don't know, I hope everybody has a chance for that experience, because it rang true. And now I don't know what it looks like exactly.
Yeah.
But it did at one point felt like a purpose or a drive.
Sure.
And so I just studied anthropology and learned more, liked it more and more. And then when I graduated, came to the same conclusion that a lot of people do, that we're just sort of out of luck when it comes to certain career paths.
Sure.
Or I don't know how it works exactly.
Yeah.
To reach that goal.
Totally.
Yeah.
So graduated, discovered that, and then how did you find your path into social work?
Well, it actually ties pretty closely to the not moving back to France.
Okay.
Because when I was here, this was back in 2012, then I needed a job right away. And Tim and I had a friend who worked at a place called Opportunity Partners,
Okay.
which is a direct service professional, which is a fancy way to say you work with people with individuals with disabilities, people with disabilities.
Okay.
It's changing all the time how people are referred to with disabilities. So I started that job, and I was in employment, it was called a set instructor.
Okay.
And I worked with a team of people with disabilities who would clean apartment buildings, and I would coach them through that.
Sweet.
Basically. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I did that for a few years. The people were really enjoyable. The job was shitty. The company wasn't great, and
Sure.
it was very stressful to manage a team of like 15 people on your own, and manage sometimes there was like violent behaviors that would come up, or various different things, and so that was really overwhelming, and there wasn't a lot of support for that.
Totally. Was that the shitty part?
Yeah.
It was like there was a lack of support. And
Totally.
You were overworked and
Yeah.
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 Just like the idea of a teacher having a way too big of a classroom.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. It's never like blaming the people that I worked with, but
Of course not. Yeah.
but feeling overwhelmed and not getting the support that was needed. And then also the pay was shitty.
Totally.
Yeah.
So was it like a private company?
It is a nonprofit.
Okay.
Opportunity Partners, they're around still.
Okay. Sure. And so then after you realized that was not a good fit
Yes.
for you.
Then, I stayed with the company, and I switched over to independent living skills
Okay.
specialist, an ILS worker, which is a worker who goes into people's homes. It has a little bit of better pay, and it's 1-to-1 versus
Yeah.
the other ratio
Yeah,
that I was working with.
whatever, yeah.
So that was pretty interesting. I did that for 5 years, I think, and I really liked the people that I worked with, and
Nice.
it just came to a point, felt like I was ready to move on. And also, like, in the back of my mind, I've always been wanting to do the anthropology, like the museum studies. So throughout that, I would like volunteer at the Swedish Institute.
Oh, sweet.
And I think I just went into case management because it felt like a natural step. And, the higher wages were a calling.
Always a plus.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah,
And to still
totally.
do what I knew. So I figured I'd jump into that when I got hired at Fraser, which was 3 years ago. I don't think my math is right there. Something like that. And then I've been doing that ever since.
Sweet.
Yeah.
So you're a caseworker.
Caseworker, yes.
And didn't you have a
Oh,
more
yeah.
specific title?
Yeah, CADI, case manager. So
Okay.
CADI is CADI, community accessibility for disabled individuals.
Okay.
And I can talk to you all about that
Please
if you
do.
want. Yeah.
Please do, yeah.
So I just like to give the example, if you or I had a disability, like a lot of people I work with have mental health diagnoses, so schizophrenic, like major depressive disorder, anxiety, these types of major mental health diagnoses that prevent you from being able to work, and you qualify for Social Security, then you could qualify for a caddy waiver, which is it's by the counties, but it's also a state funded program that works with people to keep them in their homes, so you don't have to move to a nursing facility.
Totally.
The idea is like keep your independence and maintain your home, maybe live in a supportive environment, but there's a lot of new places. Like when people say supportive, a lot of people think of a group home or something more old school like that, but there are a lot of options now where you can live in your own apartment and you have some support if you need it.
That's
but
awesome.
The idea is to integrate people with disabilities.
Okay, sweet. So you said the place you work for now is called Fraser?
Fraser, yeah,
Okay,
not the show.
Okay,
no relation. Yeah.
And so are they a private company? Are they a
Nonprofit also?
Okay, great.
Yeah.
And so it was funny because that was actually one of my notes was talking about, I feel like, at least from an old school mentality again, like when you think about social work, a lot of people think about only working with people with physical disabilities.
Yeah,
and
for
so
sure.
that's pretty cool that we've upped our game and
Yeah.
are taking into consideration
That's
mental
true.
disabilities as well.
Yeah, I don't know when, but it was fairly recent that Social Security added mental health diagnosis
That's wild.
as a way to be able to get Social Security benefits.
Wow.
Yeah.
So again, obviously you said you're like assisting people with essentially trying to keep independence and find proper environments and stuff.
Yep.
So are you kind of like a conduit or are you?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
I set up the services for them. So I'll meet with somebody. I meet with people like 3 times a year.
Cool.
And when I meet with them, they'll tell me what their needs are. Like they need to get to the grocery store, or they need help with showering and bathing, doing their laundry, paying the bills. And I have a plethora of information in my mind of different services that could serve those needs. And then I'll make the connection so that those people can get in there.
That's awesome.
And help them out as they need.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Do you find that most of the time you're able to assist people? I know that's a really big question.
No, I hear you. Yeah. I'd say there's a couple factors and barriers. People might create barriers for themselves by refusing to accept services. There is still a big stigma against when I go into homes. Sometimes I can tell that people feel uncomfortable with me because of what I represent. Like I represent the government, and so I have to try to make it very clear that my sole purpose is to bring things that are an option to them. And I have no, if somebody is a drug addict, or if they're making other choices that are not benefiting them, I have no say in that. Basically, I just come in and I try to present options for
their
help.
independence.
Their independence.
Totally.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So just trying to make that known and trying to break that stigma that is there.
Totally. Cool. So what's something that is kind of the most, that you have the most common experience with, like a positive benefit? Like what's something that most often people need?
Yeah. Well, I would say most commonly what I'm authorizing, which is just how we say paying the service providers. Is homemaking and PCA. Those are pretty common. Also, like housing, so where somebody lives, because we'll pay for that. So if somebody does live in a group home or an apartment setting, then we make sure that that place is getting paid like a daily rate, basically, for the services that they provide.
Sweet.
But I would say it really varies, because I do have some people on my caseload with cerebral palsy who need total assistance versus somebody who is just needing help with shaving her legs once a week.
Sure. Sweet.
So it varies a lot, but I think the positive benefits are when you really can see that somebody would be in the hospital, but they're really thriving in their own home.
That's
or
so awesome.
maybe they like own their own home, and they just get a few people to come in during the week to do a couple things and support them, or teach them how to learn how to do it themselves. And then teach someone to fish.
Totally.
Fish. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of funny how people, able-bodied people or just people with privilege do not think about that shit.
Yeah, a lot.
Do not think about the tiny stuff.
Yeah, you don't. I mean, even we don't have to go down the Corona road, but
Yeah.
this is like a very specific example
Totally.
that a lot of people might not think, I'm not going to get sick, it's not going to affect me. Or you could prepare and buy 20 rolls of toilet paper, but if your neighbor has a disability and their staff can't come that week, or they never knew about the waiver services or different things that could help them, that's going to affect them on a way more monumental level. So a lot of things that we take for granted, I think that's a benefit that I get to interact with people, and I can really see my privilege in a lot of ways.
Totally.
Yeah.
I think of one of the things, my dad wasn't very able-bodied towards the end of his life, and like the tiniest thing, like somebody helping him clip his toenails.
Totally, yeah.
So that he wasn't in pain constantly.
Right.
Like stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my God, people don't get it.
Well, yeah, and it kind of reminds me of how separated we are these days, and there has been improvements to how people view people with disabilities, but we're way more segregated and secluded in our own homes. So maybe in the past, like if there was more of a stigma, but if you lived in a community setting, maybe people took care of you. And so there's good and bad with the changes that we've had over the time that we've lived even, but like we're so secluded. We all live in our little boxes, and people are afraid to talk to each other.
Totally.
Even.
And besides the seclusion, the idea of, again, just accessible spaces that are accessible for everybody. It's
right.
like, yeah, that shit's so wild.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't even think about it. And I do think about it now, because I do go out, sometimes with people that I work with, and even just like ramps.
Yep.
Not being around.
Yeah.
And not
wonky
it's
sidewalks.
Just like you just cannot access that place.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or winter, especially in this city, is just like people cannot leave their homes.
Yeah. That's wild.
Yeah.
Yeah. So another note that I wanted to ask you about, and I feel like is probably even more interesting now, just kind of learning about how mental health was relatively recently recognized, even in support and everything. Are there, I imagine, if you're willing to talk about, there are times when you feel overwhelmed or like you don't actually have a way to help somebody?
Yeah.
Are there common things like that? Or
Yeah.
is it...
A lot, I would say. I could give probably a couple different examples. Mostly I think of younger people that I work with. And so schizophrenia, the onset of the symptoms usually happen in the early 20s.
Wow.
And so I've worked with people before who are just starting to realize their diagnoses.
Wow.
And so they've lived their life before they did need some support, but they're just starting to have this onset of severe paranoia and hearing voices. And the ability to cope with that is so hard it's just hard to cope with that. I don't know, most of us have no idea what that could be like, to hear voices that are always evil, to see hallucinations in the room. And so beyond being schizophrenic, diagnosed, bipolar possibly, they are this age that they're trying to fit into society. They're just maybe moving out of their parents' house. And I've seen it go this way before, where they don't see the benefit of services. They're so far gone in their mental illness and isolation that they're unreachable.
Totally.
And at that point, I just don't know, because, they're 22, 23. I don't know if they will be reachable, or, it seems like a crucial point. And that gets hard because I don't want to ever give up on somebody. But it does come to a point sometimes where you've offered your whole hand, and that's all you can give. And you have to accept that people will make their choices, and just sort of, I mean, I always remember those people. I think of them, I wonder where they are, and I hope they're okay. But I just had to realize that there wasn't anything I could do past a certain point. Yeah.
Wow. So we've been talking about the different services that you can offer, and a lot of them seem like, excuse me, like physical assistance or stuff like that. Are you able to offer like financial support for finding therapy?
See, no, there isn't that availability. It's a huge gap.
That's wild.
I can recommend low cost providers, but there isn't funding for those services. The services that I can offer, which are paid through insurance, is an arms worker, which is adult rehabilitative mental health services, which would be a worker who could take somebody to the store, and they're supposed to be more trained on mental health. So, but
they're not a therapist.
They're not a therapist. No,
Yeah.
they're not treating anything.
Okay.
They're not. They wouldn't even be available in a crisis. Most likely, they would be leaving in that sort of situation.
Totally.
So, no, they're not a therapist. There are not tax dollars for support in mental health that way.
Which seems pretty wild when you're dealing with people with mental disabilities.
I mean, definitely. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. It's a huge gap for sure. And then you wonder, how else would somebody who's going through this get support, and why they are where they're at.
So then, I mean, in theory, it's essentially just up to them, the individual, in order to seek that out, find support for it.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Get themselves on. Well, so most of your clients have insurance?
Most of them meet an income bracket, so they have medical assistance.
Okay.
So certain things are covered.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's still obviously also not within your programming specifically to advise.
Right.
Yeah. A therapist or a whatever. Maybe do therapists do home visits? I don't know.
Yeah, there are therapists that do home visits.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that would be really beneficial for a lot of people. Wow.
Yeah. And some people do have access to that. So I don't want to exclude that, but
well, like they have access, but you don't necessarily.
I don't know.
As somebody that supports people with
right.
mental death. That's pretty wild.
Yeah.
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 Wow.
There's a big lack there. For sure.
So is there a specific aspect or like call to action that somebody in your position would like? What's the biggest form of support that you're in need of right now? Literally more funding?
No more workers.
No more, yeah.
We don't have any workers.
Wow.
I am constantly making referrals for homemaking, PCA. These are jobs that cannot sustain a workforce.
Wow.
People are not in these jobs for longer than 6 months to a year.
Wow.
It's really hard to find consistent staffing.
Stuff?
Definitely because of pay. Yeah. Yeah. These are minimum wage jobs, and sometimes people are doing, nitty gritty, dirty work, and they're not being reimbursed at a good level. And it can be hard. It can be frustrating to work with people with disabilities. They might be in a place where they're really depressed and they take it out on you.
Totally.
So,
and that's almost two jobs at once, right?
Yeah.
Besides physical support, you're also kind of doing the role of a therapist.
Yeah.
And
like you're taking on the emotional burden.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Wow. That's really wild to think about.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a huge issue with that, because there's a lot of legislation that's happened in the last years to move forward in terms of person-centered, quote unquote, thinking and making plans so that people feel involved, but there hasn't been money backed up with it. And so we can sit and talk about person-centered all day. I can have a conversation with one of my clients, what do you want? But there aren't the resources always to make that happen. So it's not a fully developed picture.
Sure. Forgive me if this is ignorant because I don't know exactly what all it entails, and I'm sure I should know more.
No, I'm sure it's not.
But
no.
would something like universal health care assist in that, or is that something separate?
Well,
like as far as funding from the government goes?
It would be separate.
Okay.
Because technically, and it's not something I'm an expert on either, but medical assistance looks like universal health care.
Okay.
The people I work with do have their services covered.
Okay.
So, but it's because they meet a certain income and
Right.
just a bracket.
So I guess even more so my question would be, in theory, if there is universal health care, in theory there would also be more funding for stuff like this?
Oh, yeah. Or
Right?
hopefully.
I mean, yeah, this is all
It's-
obviously imaginative, but yeah.
I think it would probably be more like a changing of attitudes because
Okay.
it would have to be changes in legislation.
Policy.
Yeah, policy. Because even my pay, everybody who works in social services, the pay is decided by policy.
Wow.
So there's like a certain amount that they reimburse companies for these services,
Okay.
and that's decided at that level.
Wow.
And so there are COLAs, which happen usually once a year, which is a cost of living adjustment.
Okay.
But usually, for example, Tim has been working in the field. He's a employment specialist.
Okay.
And he hasn't gotten a raise for 7 years. I
Damn.
think. Yeah.
Damn. And it's a salary, I'm assuming?
No, he's
Oh.
hourly.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's wild. And I mean, so changes need to happen in policy.
In policy, yes.
Also, as you've mentioned, just recently, mental health was even recognized in
Right.
policy in that way.
Yeah,
So we got
yeah.
a little bit of ways to go.
Definitely. I
Wow.
think, I mean, the stigma's still there for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even when you talk to your friends in a group, the word crazy gets thrown out
Yeah.
constantly.
I'm always hitting myself for
Yeah.
or trying to catch myself for
Yeah.
saying that.
I mean, it's easy to think, it's a snap judgment that we make. If something feels uncomfortable, it's easy to say that's crazy, but it stigmatizes it. It makes it people with mental health diagnoses or, just living with it from day to day, they don't want to talk about it.
Totally.
But
Totally. And I mean, the idea that, again, everything's just so delayed as far as policy goes and stuff. I'm sure that there are people with mental disabilities that have been able to explore that, been able to fill their toolbox with things for communication and just for understanding
Yeah.
themselves.
yeah, definitely.
But obviously, there's, I'm sure, a lot of people that they themselves
Yep.
don't understand, or they themselves are scared to
Totally.
explore and seek assistance.
Yeah, I mean, I was happened to go to a conference today, and I was listening to a lecture about bipolar 1 and 2 and borderline personality disorder, and they were talking about how little bipolar 1 and 2 are diagnosed, and it gets
Totally.
missed so much.
Wow.
So a lot of people living with mental health don't even know that they have a diagnosis that could be treated through psychotherapy. I'm not going to sit here and be anti-medication. Medications do help people. It's not the end all be all, but sometimes people do need medication, and there's a stigma around that too.
Right.
But certain disorders, that is going to help you.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Do you have any suggestions for... Okay, I got a two-parter.
Okay.
Do you have any suggestions for if people feel strongly about this and they want to support, maybe they don't necessarily want to get into the field themselves,
Yeah,
but they want to support changes in legislation?
Yeah.
Or what's something that they can do?
Well, I'm going to look it up after this so you
Okay.
can make a little post.
Cool.
But there are definitely legislation sessions.
Cool.
And there's like days at the Capitol, disability services, to help rally, talking to senators, legislators, talking to people in your local politics about it. If you have if you deal with it yourself, if you have a family member those stories really hit home because exposure is going to make a difference. If these people who are writing legislation don't know, then they're just gonna pass by it like it doesn't matter.
Totally.
So they got to hear stories. And there's at least one day at the Capitol, I know, and disability services, all sorts of direct support professional, all sorts of services are present there to show what we need to happen.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
It's kind of wild to think about how people that don't have experience with these things, just like you said, it's important for people that are making these policies to hear these stories.
Yeah.
How backwards it is that people are making decisions for these people that have no...
Happens all the time.
Happens all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, exposure and I sort of feel like it shouldn't just be the jobs of the people who are living with disabilities to tell other people what their stories are. We have to listen to people and search them out as well. That can be delicate because you don't want to approach somebody in a way that makes them feel uncomfortable, like they have to share their story, but there's a way to ask.
Totally.
That's respectful. And just listen to people.
Totally.
And a lot of people that I work with are very lonely. So even if you're not wanting to get into the work field, there's ways to volunteer with people with disabilities. And I mean, just become, there's companion services too, which is like, if you don't have a lot of time, you could do that a few hours a week where you're just playing cards with somebody.
Sweet.
Making lots of new friends.
Hell yeah.
Great people.
Yeah, to touch back on the idea that you're mentioning about, just the different ways to educate yourself or to educate other people, and the idea of, like you mentioned, asking people with disabilities to kind of put in the emotional labor of like telling their own stories. Or, I don't think people realize, and obviously this spans across a lot of different underrepresented people, but like I don't think people realize the amount of labor that
it can be.
And how much you asking somebody to explain themselves, especially that you know nothing about, how much that can reverberate through their life, the effect of that, or the sadness of not being seen can affect somebody for a long time when you just get to walk away from it that day.
Exactly.
That's a very, very hard place to be in. And I don't think people, can really understand the depth of that until you're in that position.
Definitely. Yeah.
It's brutal for a lot of people.
Yeah.
It's like if you don't feel comfortable, or if somebody's not offering up that information to you, well, from the specific person's perspective that you're trying to learn more about is most beneficial, go to your library, go to the internet. There are people that have written books from their perspective. There are all sorts of resources.
Right. It's not somebody's job to educate you. And it is valuable to listen to them if they want to be heard. But there's other ways to be educated about.
Absolutely. And it's like, I've just been in a few experiences where people almost shame you for not wanting to educate them. They're like, well, if we're supposed to change this, we're supposed to have a conversation, right? And it's like, yeah, but you're asking me to put in this work that you haven't already done. Right. So you're just like asking a lot.
You're asking a lot. Yeah. And I might not be in the space to share that with you.
No.
And yeah, at least asking if somebody is comfortable with it. It's not as complicated as it might seem.
Totally. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Shit's wild. All right. So then if anybody would actually like to get into social work more officially, how do they go about that? Do you have to get a degree?
I didn't.
Oh, okay.
I did not get a degree in social work. I mean, I think having a bachelor's affected my hireability to become a case manager, but they were not specific about what the field was. And now they're moving farther and farther away from that because they know that people have been in direct support roles for a long time, know a lot more about it necessarily, just somebody who got a degree, you know?
Totally.
So I think there are more and more chances for that. Getting into direct support roles, anybody could do that.
Sure.
They are hiring all the time.
Totally.
Yeah. I would say nonprofit jobs. I'm trying to remember the website. I'm going to give you all this info when we're done.
Great.
Nonprofit Job Board is a good place to check out
Okay.
work that's available. And there's a special button you can push and you get your social work job.
Nice.
There you go. There you go. And yeah, or, you know, people could email me because I know a lot of companies were always getting info that
Sweet.
companies that are looking for workers, if they'd want to do like homemaking is a big one.
Totally.
We always need homemakers, yeah.
Do you want to shout out your email now and we'll repeat it later as
Sure,
well?
yeah. My email is Liz, Liz, Booman, BUHMANN.MN @gmail.org.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing
Recently changed it.
Hell
Grown up.
yeah.
Got my grown up email.
that. It's my name.
Not eat butts 95
That works too at
all day
hotmail.com.
at Hotmail. Yes.
Fantastic. So you can get a job or you can even volunteer, just try it out.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See if it works for you. Because
See if it
obviously
works.
it's a lot of,
Yeah.
takes a certain type of angel
It does.
to work in that field.
It does, yeah. I know it's almost like a catchphrase, and to be honest, at this point, I don't judge people for saying it, but a lot of people say it's rewarding, and it gets repetitive, but it is rewarding.
Yeah, for sure.
It is. You get to see, it's rewarding to make connections with people on a deeper level, and when you can help, you can see the ripple effect, and that's really great.
Totally.
Yeah,
That's
you don't
awesome.
even have to do that much to help. Usually people just want somebody to talk to.
Totally. Gosh, having somebody to talk to is a lifesaver.
I
more
mean,
often
feeling
than
less
not.
less isolated.
Yeah.
It's so isolating, especially, you know, as you age. Even I could feel that now. Could see how it happens, and you just lose community, and you don't know how much you need it
Totally.
until you lose it, or you see
Totally.
people without it.
Yeah. Yeah, there was, I think 2 years ago now, I pinched a nerve in my spine and I was in bed for 2 months essentially.
Man,
And the amount of, I feel bad even talking about it just
Yeah.
because obviously it was such a short amount of time relatively to people that
no,
live
I
with
mean,
chronic pain.
it doesn't take that long to feel.
But it doesn't take that long. I mean, that's what I mean is
Yeah.
that, like, you know, I was out for 2 months and I just was so depressed.
Yeah.
And also, like, at some point didn't know how to reach out. It's
Yeah.
like, all right, people know that I'm in bed.
Yeah,
And if people aren't reaching out to me, that must mean that
right.
they don't
You go
have
there
the
right
capacity
away.
or the ability to
Yep.
help. Yeah.
Yeah, and
That is
even though they
wild.
might, but people just, I don't know what it is. It's just that we get wrapped up in our life, and it taking that time. Even if you think people know that you're there for them, they don't. Like, they will
Yeah.
appreciate
Right. Yeah,
a reach out, especially if they're in a position where they can't, you know. Maybe if your friend has been feeling depressed and you didn't know they were depressed, but you noticed they haven't been around and you reach out, it means something.
Totally.
Yeah.
And I think, too, kind of the idea that, especially if people aren't, like, sharing and very open about their mental health and everything, and a lot of times people can take that as personal. Like,
Right.
if your friend's isolating themselves or not responding or something, yeah, sure, maybe you have a flaky friend, but also maybe they're depressed as hell.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And just like trying to break that down, and they might not be responding to you. They might not be nice to you. And you have to set your own boundaries when it comes to that.
Right.
But if you have the capacity to try, it's gonna sit with them, you know. They're gonna hear you.
And that's important too. Like, if you don't have the capacity, then
That's
you might
important
not
too.
be the right person to
Right.
help. But if you do have the capacity, if you are one of those people, you're an angel for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm. And for that, I would just say set boundaries before you reach out for yourself. If you
Yes.
feel like it might come to the point, because it's going to be harder later on. And it's okay to set boundaries and say, I am there for you.
Totally.
And I'm there for myself too.
Yep. It seems so basic, but why is it not? It's just not.
It's just not
easy. It's
Yeah.
not easy.
Oh, we hide from things like that.
Totally.
We want it when we hang out with friends. We want it to be easygoing.
And again, just the whole air of the environment rather around mental health and the fact that
Yep.
I don't know about you, but for me it has not been something commonly talked about. It's not something you learn about in school.
Totally.
It's
Yeah.
not something my family talked about.
No. Yeah. No, there's no education. You're just winging it. Yeah.
Yeah. And like even now that we're all learning the importance of taking care of your own mental health, everybody else's and stuff, it's like, it's funny. I feel like a hypocrite now, but for the past handful of years, I would preach and agree about how great therapy was, but I never went to therapy until
Really?
last year.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, oh yeah, I have friends that do that and that works really well for them.
Right.
But not,
Not seeing your own lens or
Yeah.
not seeing yourself through that lens.
Totally.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's been a game changer. Everybody go to therapy.
Everybody
If you
go to
can,
therapy.
Do it.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I'm guilty of that myself
Yeah.
because I've been trying to, and I have a good job and I still, and I've been given resources from friends for low cost options and I still hesitate or, I put it on the back burner.
Absolutely.
I don't prioritize my mental health
Absolutely.
until it gets to that point.
Yep.
And then I feel crippled. So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
And too, it's really hard committing to finding a therapist that's actually a good fit for you.
Exactly.
Like I was really blessed with getting a few recommendations and I love my therapist and I
Yeah.
think we're a great fit together.
That's awesome.
And for now too,
Right.
things change as well.
Totally.
But it's like, yeah, oh my God, I've heard some horror stories.
Yeah.
So it's hard. It's hard standing up for yourself.
It is, yeah. I went to therapy as a child and had pretty uncomfortable experiences. I felt like I didn't benefit from it.
Totally.
So that just kind of set me off of it. And hearing other people's stories is inspiring.
Definitely. Well,
Well,
let's get out of this therapy hole.
okay, yeah. I'm in a pretty good mood today now that I see your face.
Cute. Let's talk about vintage apparel.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
All right, so Liz is
yeah.
a cute ass and has the style of a maven.
Oh, wow. Ooh, nice.
Ooh.
Yeah.
And as listeners may know,
Oh,
sometimes our guests fill out a little questionnaire.
yeah.
And sometimes we talk about it, sometimes we don't. I'll have to say that one of the things that Liz mentioned that she thinks about during the day, does my ass look good in these pants?
That's true.
The answer is yes, Liz.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, it does.
Thank you, Vicky.
I will say always. So you can cross that off your list.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
How did you get into fashion stuff?
I always have been always. People say that, but as a young kid, I liked looking weird. I
Putting
liked
a fit together?
Yeah,
Hell
putting things standing out in a crowd. I got expelled from high school for uniform violations constantly.
What were your uniform requirements?
Our uniform was like a classic Catholic school uniform.
My God, amazing.
I would just push the boundaries, which was basically the worst I could do was some crazy socks. And I would get suspended. I would get sent
Oh my
to
God.
the deans.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Yeah.
Do you remember when the jeans with like the lace up sides were really popular?
Yes, yes.
I was called into the office in the 8th grade. And this is actually my first, the first time that, okay, I was going to say my first experience of gendering that I was like super conscious of.
Sure.
Which I will still say,
Yeah.
definitely. But maybe more even appropriately just like, yeah.
Like
more
sexualized?
Sexualized, absolutely.
Okay.
That's a much better way of putting it
Mm.
because I did not think they were sexy.
Right.
I didn't put them on. I thought they were cool as hell. And,
Right.
And, you know?
Yeah.
And I remember, I was playing basketball out at recess in 8th grade with these 2 boys.
Yeah.
And I don't even remember what you would call them. The lady that got the kids in trouble. She comes out and she's like, Victoria, come with me. And they made me put on sweatpants.
Wow.
Yeah, because I was like showing too much skin, and it wasn't, it like wasn't even any skin.
Yeah.
Yeah, just
through the little
Yep.
the little yarn holes.
There was skin. So
well, you
was
have
too
skin.
Much.
Yeah.
Besides my hands were showing.
Right.
So yeah, not okay.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. How did that make you feel?
I was so embarrassed.
Yeah.
I was so embarrassed.
Yeah.
And I remember at the time, like, feeling like I did something wrong.
Right. Of course.
And being so embarrassed and just being like, and then also not understanding that essentially they were sexualizing me.
Right.
And also, it's definitely one of those situations where I look back, and at the time it was kind of a very empty, like, oh, I broke the dress code that I didn't know existed.
Right.
Okay, I'll put on the sweatpants.
Right.
And then looking back, I'm like, no, like you saw me playing basketball with 2 boys.
Right.
If I was playing basketball with 2 girls, would you have called me over?
Or not noticed.
Yeah, totally.
Right. Yeah.
And it's like I went through the first half of the day
Yeah.
just fine.
Right.
No complaints. Till you saw me shooting hoops.
Right. And there wasn't any effect on anything else.
No.
Your
The
ability
boys,
to
I didn't even have crushes on the boys. You know what I mean? It was like,
Right.
Yeah, like nobody.
It was just your pants.
Nobody was sexualizing me besides this adult woman.
Right.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah. I was not the opposite per se, but around that age, I'm guessing, I did not show my body at all. I wore very oversized. I had a YMCA sweater that was my mother's that I wore every day.
Hell yeah, dude.
In 5th grade, I think. I did not want to show any part of my body. But that's almost, that's a choice, but it also being uncomfortable with changes that are happening and not feeling okay with
comfortable with your body.
Yeah, with people
totally.
looking at you or
Honestly, I was the same way, which is why it was so fucked up. And
Yeah.
I like really can't express how little skin was showing.
Yeah.
It was like, oh, do like crisscrosses turn you on, recess lady? Like,
well, I think I can understand because at the same time, I would wear these pants. They were like the giant bell bottoms, the huge bell bottoms.
yes.
And so I think like I didn't want to be seen, but I wanted to be noticed. I don't know.
Absolutely, yeah.
Sort of a
uncomfortable with your body.
Right.
Still wanted to like have a original flair.
right.
We like fashion, sweetie.
Yes, sweeties. Yes, yes.
Yeah, I had just come from so for 1st through 7th grade, kindergarten through 7th grade actually, I went to a Christian country school.
All right.
All right. And yeah, there were like generally on an average year there were 4 people in my grade.
Wow. Okay.
And so we could wear, they were like very, very strict, but like it was just a slap in the face when I got to the public school because
Yep.
like nobody was sexualizing you,
Right.
Everybody, yeah, no, definitely not. Like everybody was brothers and sisters and stuff, and
Right. Wear whatever you want to wear.
wear whatever you want, dog.
Yeah, man.
As long as it doesn't shit talk Jesus.
Right.
Very appropriate.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
So you're always a fashionista.
Little baby fashionista.
Little baby. And when did you decide to... Okay, so you what is it? Steadfast Vintage.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. Geez. Okay. That was probably only last year.
Awesome.
Yeah. Well, partially people had been telling me to do it.
Hell yeah.
So I decided to do it.
Hell yeah.
And pretty low key. I usually just like have people over to the house.
Sweet.
Sell out of the living room,
That's awesome.
undercover operations, making big money. But it takes up a lot of time. There's a lot of competition in this city.
Totally.
But I love it. I
That's
really do.
awesome.
I love finding the pieces, and I really like. Before doing the sale, I would just give stuff away to my friends because I really like that. I don't know, that experience.
Totally.
Or that, like, I
Yeah.
want to know that I gave you that thing that you're gonna feel good in and dress you up. I want everybody to be fashionistas.
Totally. Yeah. And it's fun having that eye and like seeing
Right.
something that would,
Yeah, it
feel
feels
on
good.
somebody else.
Yeah.
Totally. So I know you have an Instagram.
I do.
Which is steadfast
Vintage. Yeah, steadfast vintage.
And then I know that so besides selling out of your living room, sometimes you have a rack
Yeah. Oh, yeah. At Total Drag, if
Sweet.
anybody ever makes their way to Sioux Falls, South Dakota,
Awesome.
I bring some wares there. Liz is co-owner, Liz and Dan, and they own Total Drag, a record
Awesome.
store. And yeah, she's been very, very welcoming. Let me put up some clothes there.
Sweet.
I don't get there as often as I'd like, but you could probably find some wares there.
Hell yeah. What's your favorite? Is there like a favorite piece you've ever found?
Oh, good question. Well, I will have this piece for sale that I'm not sure if I want to get rid of, but it's a leather jacket with sweet, sweet fringe.
Cute.
It's a classic biker jacket, very 80s.
Very nice.
Classic. Beauty.
Hell yeah. Do you like specifically like any sort of apparel the most, like shoes,
Oh,
skirts,
yeah.
jackets?
I lean towards 70s pretty hard.
Hell yeah. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
It just looks good on everyone, I
Sure
think.
does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rock and roll.
Very good. Do you have anything else that you want to talk about?
Jeez.
Shout out?
Oh, I don't think so.
You just like blew through an hour.
Dang.
Bang.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. It's easy talking.
Yeah.
You're easy to talk to.
You too, bud. Yeah, geez, we covered a lot.
Yeah, we did. We jumped. It felt very streamlined, though, you know?
Yeah,
Like,
totally.
we got from point A to point B,
Hell yeah.
point D, F. Fashion.
Fashion. Sweet. Well,
Yeah.
thanks for coming, Liz.
You're so welcome. I'll come anytime you ask me to, baby.
Yeah. I really wanna start doing like comeback interviews with people too.
Sweet.
'Cause
Yeah.
everybody I talk to is so damn interesting.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be great. I'd love to.
Well, thanks again.
You're welcome.
Talk soon.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Attention!